Welcome to Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. My name is Butterworth, and today we will continue with the epic tale of the Argonauts, beginning with the Symplegades. Full of gratitude and moved in heart, Phineus took leave of his liberators, who sailed on to new adventures. For 40 days a wind blew from the northwest and halted their voyage until offerings and prayers to all 12 gods once more speeded them on their way. They were sailing along smoothly and swiftly when a thunderous crash struck upon their ears. This was the roar of the Symplegades, striking together and recoiling, mixed with the vast echoes from the shore and the hiss of the frothing sea. Typhus, the helmsman, stood watchfully at the tiller. Young Euphemus rose in his place, holding a dove in his palm on his right hand, for Phineus had said that if a dove flew fearlessly between the rocks, that they too might make it through that passage. Euphemus let the bird fly, and all heads raised in tense expectation. It sped through, but already the rocks were approaching each other, and the water foamed and churned in the narrow strait. Air and sea were loud with clamor, and now the cliffs met and clipped off the tail feathers of the dove. Yet it had come through unharmed, so Typhus encouraged the oarsmen in a loud voice. The rocks fell apart, and the current streaming between drew the ship in its wake. Destruction beset them on all sides. A tall breaker surged forward, and the sight was so menacing that they shrank back in fear and terror. Then Typhus bade them stop rowing. The foaming wave rushed under the keel and lifted the ship high above the rocks, closing in on one another. The men strained at the oars until the blades almost seemed to bend. Now the whirl bore them down between the rocks again, and they would surely have been crushed had not Athene, the patron goddess of the Argonauts, thrust the ship forward, though she was invisible to them until it escaped, with only the tip of the stern shattered. When the heroes saw the sun and the open sea again, they shed their fears and drew their breath freely, feeling as though they had come up from the underworld. "This did not come about through our own strength," cried Typhus. "Behind me I felt the divine hand of Athene pushing the ship strongly through the cleft. Now we have nothing more to fear, for Phineus said that after this danger was past, all our other labors would seem light." Jason. He shook his head sadly and said, "My good Typhus, I have tried the gods by allowing Peleus to impose this task upon me. Rather should I have left him destroy me. Now I must spend my days and nights in sighs and distress, not for myself, but for your lives, and the welfare, and in pondering how I may save you from peril and return you unharmed to your native land." And Jason said all this only to test his comrades, but they acclaimed him lustily and wanted nothing better than to follow their illustrious leader forever. Further adventures. The heroes continued on their quest. Typhus, their faithful helmsman, fell ill and died, and they had to bury him on an alien shore. In his stead, they chose one of their numbers versed in the art of steering, Aeneas. For a long time he refused to take over this difficult office. Finally, Hera inspired him with courage and confidence, and he took his place at the tiller and guided the ship as well as Typhus had done. Under his direction on the 12th day they made for the open sea, and soon, with all sails spread, came to the mouth of the river Callichorus. There, on a mound near the shore of the sea, they saw the tomb of the hero Sthenelus, who had gone forth against the Amazons with Heracles, and struck by an arrow had died in this place. They were about to continue their voyage when the sorrowful shade of Sthenelus, whom Persephone had given leave to ascend from the underworld, appeared to them and gazed at his kinsman with longing eyes. He stood on the very top of the mound, looking just as he did when he went forth to battle, with a crest of 4 scarlet feathers streaming from his helmet. But he was visible for only a few brief moments, and then sank back in the cheerless depths of the earth. The heroes rested on their oars, appalled at the apparition, and no one but Mopsus, the seer, understood what it was the departed spirit wanted. He counseled his companions to offer a libation for the peace of the slain man's soul. Quickly they lowered the sails, made fast the ship, and ranged themselves above the grave. They sprinkled it with libations and slaughtered sheep and burned them. Then they proceeded on their journey, and after a time came to the mouth of Thermodon, which was like no other in all the world. For it rose from a spring far up in the mountains, but soon, after leaving its source, separated into a great number of branches, and rushed down toward the ocean in so many streams that indeed it lacked only 4 to make up 100. They swarmed into the open sea like writhing snakes. At the widest of the outlets dwelt the Amazons. This nation of women was descended from the god Ares and loved the trade of war. Had the Argonauts landed here, they would doubtless have become embroiled in bloody battle with these women, whose courage equaled that of the bravest man. They did not all live in one city, but were scattered over the countryside in separate tribes. A propitious wind from the west drove the Argonauts far from these strange beings. After a day and a night, just as Phineus had foretold, they came to the land of the Chalybes. Its people did not plow the earth. They planted no fruit trees, nor did they pasture herds or dewy meadows. Their sole occupation was to dig the hard earth for ore and iron, and to exchange it for food. No dawn ever saw them making merry. Every day they labored in pits as black as night, and in heavy murk of smoke. The Argonauts passed many other people. Once they were near an island named Artia, or the island of Ares. A bird native to the country flew toward them, moving his wings with powerful strokes. When he was immediately above the ship, he shook his pinions and dropped a pointed plume. It pierced the shoulder of Ilias, and the pain was so great that he let the oars slip from his fingers. His companions looked at the winged missile in astonishment, and the one nearest him drew out the feather and bound up the wound. Soon a second bird appeared. Clitus, who had been holding his bow in readiness, shot him in flight, and he fell onto the ship. "The island is nearby," said Amidamus, who was an experienced voyager. "Beware of those birds. They are probably so many of them. If we landed, we should not have enough arrows to destroy them. So let us think of some way to drive these creatures away. Let us all put on our helmets with their tall, flowing crests, and take turns at rowing, while the rest deck out the ship with shining lances and shields. Then we will raise our voices in terrifying cries, and when the birds hear us and see the waving plumes, the sharp lances, and the glittering shields, they will take fright and fly away." This plan pleased the heroes, and they carried it out in every detail. Not a living creature did they see as they approached the island. But when they had come close and rattled their spears, countless birds flew up from the shore and stormed over the ship. But just as one closes the shutters of a house to keep out the hail, so the heroes covered themselves with their shields, and the sharp quills fell without harming them. The birds themselves and the terrible Symplegades fled far across the sea to the opposite coast, while the Argonauts followed the advice of King Phineus the seer and landed on the island. Here they found unexpected friends and companions, for scarcely had they taken a few steps along the shore when they met 4 youths in tattered clothing and appearing to be sad and in need of everything. One of them came toward him. "Whoever you may be," he cried, "help the poor shipwrecked. Give us clothing, give us food to quench our hunger." Jason promised them aid and asked them their names and their descent. "You must have heard of Phrixus, the son of Athamas," the youth replied, "he who brought the golden fleece to Colchis. King Aeetes gave him his eldest daughter in marriage. We are his sons, and my name is Argus. Our father, Phrixus, died a short time ago, and in obedience to his dying wish, we embarked to fetch the treasures he left in the city of Orchomenop." The heroes were overjoyed, and Jason greeted the youth as his kinsman, for his grandfather, Crathius, had been the brother of Athamas. The boys went on to tell how their ship had been wrecked in a storm and how a plank had carried them to this inhospitable island. But when the heroes told them of their plans and asked them to share their venture, they did not conceal their horrors. "Our grandfather, Aeetes," they explained, "is a cruel man. He is said to be the son of Apollo, and this accounts for his superhuman strength. Countless tribes in Colchis came under his sway, and a dreadful dragon guards the fleece." Some of the heroes paled at this report, but Peleus rose and said, "Do not think that we must necessarily be defeated by the king of Colchis, for we too are the sons of gods. If he refuses to give us the golden fleece of his own accord, we shall wrest it from him in defiance of his power and his men." During the banquet which followed, they spoke further with one another of this matter. The next morning, the sons of Phrixus, clothed and revived, went aboard on the ship, and the Argo continued on her voyage. After they rowed for a day and a night, they saw the peaks of the Caucasus Mountains looming over the surface of the sea. When twilight fell, they heard a rushing sound over their heads. It was the eagle flying to Prometheus to feed on his liver. He soared high above the ship, but the beat of his wings was so strong that the sails bellied out into a high wind. Soon after, they heard Prometheus groan as the giant bird hacked at his entrails. Then the sound died away, and they saw the eagle returning through the lofty regions of the sky. That was the same night they reached the destination, the mouth of the river Phocis. Nimbly they climbed the mast and took down the rigging. Then they rowed up the broad river where waters seemed to retreat before the massive hull of their ship. To their left was the lofty Caucasus, and Citta, the capital of Colchis. To the right, a far-flung meadow and the sacred grove of Ares, where a dragon was keen, unblinking eyes guarded the golden fleece, where it hung in the leafy boughs on a tall oak. And now Jason stepped to the edge of the ship, lifted high in his hand a golden cup, brimming with wine, and offered a libation to the river, to Mother Earth, to the gods of that country, and to the heroes who had died on their journey. He begged them all to give him loving help, and to watch over the cables of the ship which they were about to make fast. "So now we have reached Colchis safely," said the helmsman, "and the time has come to decide whether we are going to approach King Aeetes in a friendly manner or carry out our intentions in some other way." "Tomorrow!" cried the tired heroes. Jason bade them cast anchor in a shady bay of the river. They lay down and sank into a sweet sleep, but their rest was brief, and the dawn soon woke them. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back tomorrow with more tales, many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.